While we were sharing the gospel in the streets, we met a man named Chulu, who was a nomadic herdsman. We shared the gospel with him and invited him to come to the church that night, and he told us that if he would come with questions and keep us up till 2 in the morning. So we told him, "Come with your questions." He came to the meeting. After the service, we ended up talking to this man for about 2 hours. He was full of questions about how man could be reunited to God, even though God was perfect and man was so broken. He explained that men around the world were murdering and full of wickedness and not taking care of the earth, and he was wondering how man could be redeemed to God. It was amazing to fill in the gaps and explain who Jesus is and what he did for this man. This man was so excited because he had longed for a relationship since he was a young boy, looking up at the stars, knowing that God created them, but he didn't know anything about being connected to that God. And so at the end of the night, that man decided that he wanted to follow Jesus instead of Buddhism, instead of shamanism, instead of ancestral worship. And it was so phenomenal to see the hunger of the unreached people in Mongolia for the gospel, for the truth. When we went to the countryside, we met with a man who had liver cancer and was lying on his deathbed. His family had come to see him to say their goodbyes, and we met with him and shared the gospel. We shared that Jesus could heal him and asked him if he wanted prayer, and he said yes. And so as soon as we started praying, the man felt warmth going throughout his body. And we asked him if he felt peace, and the man said yes, very, very peaceful. And so we told him that the warmth and the peace is the presence of God, and he could feel this anytime by a relationship with Jesus. And the man said, yes, I want this. And so again, we shared the gospel because we didn't want people just to say yes, to be hospitable and not want to turn us down. But we shared the cost, what it meant to follow Jesus, meant not to follow Buddhism, not to worship other gods. And this man said, yes, I want to follow Jesus. And so he accepted Jesus, and on our way out of the village a couple days later, his son approached us and told us that his dad was better. And so we didn't hear from the doctors that his liver cancer was gone, but we're believing in faith that that man was healed. Again, we were blown away by God's goodness to show up and show the Mongolian people that they are loved by this Most High God. A man our translator, Miter, met on the bus had lost an eye to alcoholism. Our translator shared the gospel with him, but he was drunk, so he couldn't really pay attention. So Miter invited him to the group later on in the week. So we met with this man, and he also had a whole bunch of questions for us. So we talked, and he decided to follow Jesus. And he said that he wanted to be broken free from alcoholism, he wanted to be set free from his addiction to cigarettes, and he wanted his eye to be healed. So we prayed for him, and when we finished praying, he threw his cigarettes away, and he told us that he could see as if he had 2 eyes. And so we were so excited that God showed up and touched this man. Then he spent some time with our team, and it was such a blessing to see this man who was an alcoholic the week before, and today he decided to give his life to the Lord and is looking at his future now, and even considering going to another village as a missionary. And so it was so incredible to see these Mongolian people understand giving your life to Jesus, not just making a decision so it's convenient, but saying, I'm going to lay myself down to follow this God who is worthy of everything. Our team was so encouraged by the Mongolian church, who was so intentional to share the gospel. They have such a huge vision that's kingdom focused, and they lay themselves down to share the gospel, to reach the lost, to disciple the youth. And across the nation, the church is partnered to pray 24/7. Different churches throughout the nation take hour blocks and pray around the clock. It was so amazing to see their faith, to see their nation reached. Again, Miter shared the gospel on a bus, and he spent a couple hours sharing testimony and gave a woman a tract and was explaining it. And the next day we got a knock on the door, and it was a woman who had gone around the village looking for us. She went to our hotel and we weren't there, So she came and found us, and she told us, I could not sleep last night because I kept thinking about everything you said on the bus. I was thinking about Jesus, and I want to be saved. What must I do to be saved? It was so incredible to see the hunger for the gospel in a land where people have never heard his name. I was so encouraged to see that these hungry, hungry people want to be filled with the goodness of God.